Hello, everyone, and in today's podcast, we will deal with types of machine learning. So, as you can see, we'll be dealing with three types of machine learning, and they are namely supervised, unsupervised, and semi supervised machine learning. So, let's move on to supervised machine learning. And this means that we are working with labeled data. Now, what does this labeled data mean? It means that we know the output already. And what we have to do is just to map this input variables which we have with this output. And so that's why the name is supervised machine learning. To make it more easier to understand, I will walk you through one example of iris dataset and also with its image. So let's just go ahead with that. So this iris dataset is the Hello World program of machine learning. And this is the classic example to practice. If you're a beginner, it is the kickstart of your machine learning project. So I'll give you a basic description of what is dataset actually means. This dataset is a collection of rows and columns, where rows are also known as instances or examples, and the columns are the features. So we have got in Iris, we've got four columns which we are working with, and we have 150 rows or instances. These columns are also features. So we've got four features, and we have got one output feature or a column, and that is of the species. That is the output. Okay, this is the output variable, and rest are the input variables. Now, to make it more clear, let us just zoom into our example of iris. And this, as you can see, that we've got three images: versicolor, setosa, and virginica. Now, these are the various species of iris that we were talking about, and this is the outcome which we know. Now, what we have to do is we have to understand that, as you can see here, the inside three leaves are known as the petals, and we measure this flower with this petal length, petal width, and the outside sepal length and sepal width. So you can see difference between all these species in their sepal length, in their sepal width, in their petal length and petal width. So the dimensions which we are talking about is these four features, that is sepal length, sepal width, petal length, and petal width, which we are giving as columns to identify different species from one another. Another thing which I want to tell you is that the object, or you can say the output, we have to classify whether a flower belongs to which category of which class. So this is a classification problem in machine learning, where you have to classify this into these three separate classes. And this is a supervised machine learning problem because we already know the output. And what we do is we train with the given samples or different flowers to the machine, and then training it to predict this output. Okay, I hope this is clear. And now we move on to unsupervised machine learning. And here we work with unlabeled data. That means we do not know the output now, simply. And what happens is now that um, we have to classify, or we have to categorize those data into separate classes. Now, how do we do that? This task is performed by various algorithms that we'll be dealing, and I'll also walk you through a few examples. Let's go with the task of it. Now, what happens is that unsupervised machine learning, the task is being solved with the help of clustering or dimensionality reduction algorithm. Now, I will explain you the term algorithm here. We use algorithm in machine learning. They are the trainers actually. They will train your data, and the trained data will be called as model. So when you are training this data, algorithms are used, and there are various algorithms for training the data, and we'll be dealing this in separate episodes of the podcast. So now I will come to clustering. So this clustering algorithm, what it does, it clusters your data into similar homogeneous clusters or groups. And I'll talk about dimensionality reduction. In dimensionality reduction, the elements are either reduced or are eliminated, depending on the use which we want. Now, I'll walk you through one of the example of it. And the example is like you classify or you cluster different objects into their separate or respective cluster. For example, dogs and cats. So you've got various images of dogs, for example, and various images of cats. What you do is you cluster the dogs in one separate cluster, and cluster the cats into one separate cluster. So the algorithm trains the model in such a way so that it just cluster dogs into one cluster and cats into another cluster. So this is how it works. And with examples and with practice, more things would be clear. But for now, just get this intuitive knowledge about clustering and dimensionality reduction are unsupervised machine learning problems which can be solved by these two algorithms. Now we move on to a different third type, which is semi-supervised machine learning. And here what happens is learning algorithms. We are working with both labeled and unlabeled data here. That means few output are known, and for few cases outputs are not known. And actually, for most of the cases outputs are not known. So it is bended towards unsupervised and unlabeled data more. But we can take a little clue from the labeled data set also. Now, I walk you through one of the example of semi-supervised machine learning, that is reinforcement learning. Now, this reinforcement learning is also sometimes treated as a separate category, but I will put it into semi-supervised machine learning. Now, what happens in this reinforcement learning that the machine is put into a separate environment, or I can say that the agent reacts with the environment. And when there is interaction or when the machine is learning from the environment, there is rewards and punishments which is being given to this agent. And as per the rewards and punishments, it learns. So if the rewards are more, it will learn quickly and will follow it. And if the punishments are more, it will suppress that action and will not take it further. So machine learns with each move and it learns in every move, and that's why how it perfects things. So this is what reinforcement learning is, and I will just walk you through a few example of reinforcement learning that it is used in game playing, robotics, resource management, logistics, and much more. Now, in the next episode, we shall see the applications of machine learning. I would also request you to go to the website of anchor.fm or different Google or Apple podcasts to listen to more podcast episodes, because I'll be uploading selective episodes of this podcast and not all, because the season contains of many episodes and I'll be uploading only selective episodes of the podcast. So thanks and